Good morning, day 11 of our 30-day challenge. Welcome to day 11. And I want to start day 11 a little bit differently with a personal testimony. And I realize that we all are having different challenges. We all are going through different phases of awareness. And so this morning, I got up at about 4:30, and I didn't perform my morning routine. I can easily make the excuse that it was a rough night. I didn't sleep till 3 a.m. But this wasn't the reason. My body wasn't tired. I could go, but I was just emotionally not there. I was a victim of what I spoke about yesterday. And within 24 hours, I became that person. I allowed those thoughts, the challenges of the business, the disappointments from people that I care about, the expectations that I had on myself, on others. And instead of feeling excited to get started with the day, I felt resistance. And I just laid there. And I realized something, that this challenge, this day is not about discipline. It's not about choices. It's about what happens when reality doesn't match our expectations. What are we going to do? Are we going to believe the story, or are we just going to face what's in front of us? And I think that's where most people quit in this challenge. Not when things are hard or impossible, but when things become uncomfortable, when things become the way that you didn't think they'd go. And today, I want to discuss the hidden weight, the hidden burden that we carry when we have expectations of others, expectations that God never asked us to have, carrying weight and burdens that God never asked us to carry. We expect people to show up in a certain way at a certain time. We expect opportunities to happen. The business needs to be moving faster. We need to be making more money. We need to be making better products. We even expect our relationships to develop differently. Well, she should love me by now. She should not have done that. She shouldn't have lied to me. She shouldn't have stolen. He shouldn't have done this. He shouldn't have betrayed me. And when all these things don't happen, that's reality. But the next step is the story. The person lied to you. The person stole from you. That's reality. But the story is, oh, I'm not important enough to them. I'm not worthy. And that's where the suffering comes in. This shouldn't have happened. There's a gap in between what happened and what you're telling yourself about what happened. And that gap is where disappointment lives. That gap is where resentment lives. And the problem isn't always what happened. The problem is our giving it meaning and then being attached. You look at Judas. To me, Judas was a very fascinating person, a character in the Bible stories, because everybody looks at Judas as the betrayer, but I want to look at another aspect of Judas' relationship, and it was Jesus. Because remember, Jesus knew that Judas was going to betray him. Now, I don't know if he knew immediately. I don't know if he knew, when he was younger. I don't know how he got the revelation, but he knew. But he still chose Judas. He still taught Judas. I'm assuming he still trusted him with responsibility. He was the financial guy, the treasurer. But Judas still did what Judas did. Now think about that. Do you think Jesus had hope, maybe, that Judas would change? I don't know, but it tells me something very uncomfortable. If Jesus, who knew the outcome of this individual, still trusted him, still poured into him, still walked with him, still had him in his inner circle, they were only 12. What does that tell us? You can't force somebody to change. You can't force somebody to see things the way you do. You can't force alignment. You can't force spiritual, physical, mental growth for somebody else. Every single person has their own time, their own season, their own choices. And we can't control that. Even Jesus couldn't and didn't control it. He loved them. He taught them. He invited them. But he never controlled them. So why do I think I'm supposed to? Why do we think we're supposed to control people? And just as Judas betrayed Jesus, we are constantly betrayed by others. But I think one of the biggest betrayals that we don't talk about is the betrayal of ourselves. And it happens within ourselves. When you lower your standards, your convictions, your commitments. And I think the person that we break promises to the most is ourselves. And over time, that creates issues. And not because we didn't keep the commitment, but because over time you just stop trusting yourself. And so today, it's not about perfection. It's about what happens when you do get up and you don't feel like it. What happens when you do get up and you don't start the day you're supposed to start. It's about being like a child. When the child falls down, they know their identity. They get back up. And Jesus said this, and I've repeated this so many times, and I'll continue to repeat it. You have to become like a child, or you can't enter the kingdom. If you're not like a child, you can't enter peace. You can't enter joy. And the one quality that children have that allows them to keep pressing in their identity is the ability to recover. When they fall down, they cry, they get back up, and it's like a reset. And we don't do that. What we do is we replay. We rehearse. Oh, this didn't happen. I fell down. I did this. We relive. We revisit the event. We become historians of our pain. Nobody can tell our pain better than we can. We can tell when it happened, how it happened. We can even tell people why it happened. But children are so focused on the present that they're not thinking about the pain of yesterday. And I think the kingdom of God is accessed through being present, not through analysis of what happened or what could happen, not through replaying every disappointment, every closed door. And today, when I got up this morning, I realized this test for me, it wasn't whether I woke up at the perfect time, whether I did my morning meditation, and whether I did my routines. It was, what would I do after I didn't? Would I spend the rest of the day in condemnation, in guilt? Would I create stories about what happened? I'm such a bad person. I couldn't, I'm not disciplined. I'm not this, I'm not that. Would I decide the day was totally ruined? Oh, I didn't have a great day. I'm done with. Or would I just return? Because I think the enemy of growth is not necessarily failure. I actually think failure leads to growth. But the enemy of growth is when you identify yourself as a failure, or you identify yourself with failure. Because one of them says, I made a mistake. When you fail, it's I made a mistake, or I did something wrong. I did. But the other says, I am someone who makes mistakes. I am a mistake. In other words, one leads to growth and the other one leads to shame. And I don't know that shame is part of the recipe for transformation. It may be for some people, but what I learned is God is not staring at the clock. God does not even work on our timeline. God is not standing over us like some coach with a stopwatch, tracking every mistake or every delay or every missed opportunity. But what if God is less concerned about your timing and more concerned about the alignment? What if the question is, instead of, hey, did you start at 5 a.m. and say your prayers? But hey, when you became aware, did you return? Because every moment is an invitation. Every moment throughout the day, you're going to have fresh invitations. Every breath is an invitation for life. Every decision. And the kingdom is always available right now. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, today, right now. And so as we go into this day of allowing, let's remember, life flows when things are open. And it stagnates when things are closed. And I was exhausted because I was trying to control outcomes, control people, timing. But it's not my role to control. My role is just to stay aligned. I can't force growth. I can't force people to show up the way that I want them to show up. We are just like farmers. And the farmer doesn't control the outcome. The farmer only controls the effort. The farmer plants, waters, fertilizes, protects, and then his job is done. He can check on things, but he can't be disappointed because the rain didn't show up. The seed that he plants is going to do what the seed was created to do. And this is the same spiritually, financially, in our relationships, and professionally. Do the best that you can. Just show up. And as a kingdom builder, I believe that we're gifted with the understanding of something that most people miss. And it's about our inherent value. Because our value is not created by what you do. It's created by who you are, your identity. It's revealed. Culture, the world around you is going to say, do this, and then you'll be worthy. Have this job. Be a real estate agent. Be a YouTuber, and then you'll be worthy. But the kingdom says, you're already worthy. You just have to act from that knowledge and understanding of your worth. You don't have to earn anything. In the kingdom, it says, operate from your position. You don't have to prove. You just have to know. No need to prove yourself. Just know who you are. And I think this changes a lot because now discipline is just an expression. It's not, a desperate attempt to create an identity. You already have the identity. Now you just got to express it. So to sum things up, today is not about perfection. Today is not about getting it right. None of these days are about perfection. It's about remembering who you are. Not mistakes, not delays, not disappointments, not the opinions of others, and not even your emotions. You're a child of God. And children learn by doing. They learn by falling. They learn by constantly returning again and again and again and again. And so where in your life have your expectations become attachments? Where are you attached? Where are you demanding that life look a certain way before you have peace? And who do you need to release? Some people just need to be released. Maybe some outcomes need to be released. Maybe some stories that you're telling yourself need to be released today. And if you truly, truly believe that God loves you, God accepts you, God created you in God's image, how would you show up today? How would you show up in this present moment? Because the test is not the morning or the afternoon. The test is always your response to these events. And the beauty of this is you can return right now. As part of our 30-day challenge, we are called to remember throughout the day. So if you haven't, please set your alarm every 4 hours, every 5 hours, every 3 hours to remind you of your purpose, of who you are, of why you're here.